I don't actually know. I think it is recording right now.
It is recording. I have an icon's just come up, Finch, and it's just said it's recording.
Cool, awesome. So yeah, so continue with that, yeah. But yeah, so and then so what I have in a Word document are just simple, basic questions, and you can expand on them as much as you want, and
Yeah.
go from there. But yeah, anyway, so first of all, I guess I'll start out with a really basic question: is what do you do specifically, and what is your area of expertise when going into this, environmental?
It's a big question. And right now, of course, with coronavirus protocols, the industry of travel and wildlife and conservation, it's a bloodbath. For conservation to really work, you need tourists. And by denying them travel with these ludicrous sort of electioneering political zero COVID policies, you are compromising everybody. You're compromising end users, you're compromising wildlife. And compromising is a polite word for saying that you're going to have blood on your hands. When the US State Department says you can't travel to South Africa, you can't travel to Botswana, or the UK government puts a traffic light system, people will die. They will be thrust into penury. There are millions and millions of people who live off the welfare of wildlife. And it is never harmonious, but it does work. When you take away the tourists, not only with their dollars, but also their prying, policing eyes, you're staring at the abyss, I'm afraid. So yeah, I've worked in travel for over 30 years. I'm a guide, I'm a photographer, I'm a conservationist. I raise money and I get angry every day. And today is no exception.
And so I heard you talk, a little bit more about the tourism aspect of it. Can you share or extend a little bit more into how that plays into an educational role for, so say people like me or people or America who don't get to or people in general who don't get to go to these these lush areas or these areas where there's a very stark contrast in diversity of wildlife, and in terms of like what you're saying of how the restriction on travel is impacting, how do you think that will impact us in an educational aspect, and how do you think that will kind of narrow the view of what could be done for these certain situations? And
well, first of all, regarding US citizens, a few more of you have got to get passports. It could be the US could be the absolute meal ticket, but when only 5% of American citizens have passports, that rather narrows it down. And that's simple arithmetic. Secondly, a simple example really is, imagine a young village girl in India who walks to school maybe 8 miles a day, and she sees rich tourists in a I don't know, a sleek four-wheel drive going in to try and find sloth bears or Bengal tigers particularly, and she doesn't feel any sort of warmth off it. She gets no benefit. Her mother is sick, her father doesn't have a job. Now imagine if money from those tourists starts make sure that her father has a job as a ranger. Her mother can now get into an ambulance, because there is one now, to take her to the nearest hospital. She's fit and healthy. You get to a situation where the young Indian girl can't imagine life without those striped neighbors. That's the essence, very simply, of sustainable tourism. There's an awful lot of nonsense spoken about sustainability, not just in tourism and wildlife, but in many things. And a lot of it is just hot air. That's why whenever you see celebrities get involved with wildlife, normally it's nothing to do with wildlife, it's to do with them. They just want to massage the sort of sensitive section of their resume. It's nonsense. Pragmatism is what saves these animals. Pragmatism isn't generally sexy. It doesn't get so many likes on the pornography of Instagram. But pragmatism is what saves animals. And right now, it's very simple. Where I have my business in Kenya, we have virtually no tourists at the moment. Now, those tourists come into conservancies and they pay conservancy fees. That money is audited 3-4 times a year. That money gets spent properly, unlike most money in Africa. But without it, all those stakeholders, two-legged and four, don't benefit.
Cool. And so talking about the topic of Bengal tigers, I know that you have a very famous big giant Bengal tiger thing that you carry when you do charitable events I remember I think it was a marathon, right? That you
Finchley, let's make it plural. It's 15 marathons. That's right. Yeah, look, there's no, particularly my age, there's no physical gratification I got out of running 27 miles with a 9 foot, 20 kilo tiger on your back. The point of it is very simple. It brings awareness. It's also raised a lot of money, close to $500,000 for projects. You can't raise money just for a species. Where are you going to pay it? Most of that money has gone on local education, because if you're my current project is 2 schools, 1,000 pupils. Neither school even has running water. Well, it does now. It has a borehole now. It has a perimeter fence. It has electricity. All of these things they wouldn't have. There's 1,000 pupils that will benefit now, and they know where that money's coming from. That's why my campaign with tigers, I've got lots of other campaigns, but with tigers, has always been worth more alive. They are, if you imagine a Bengal tiger poached, imagine it on the slab. It's been shot, it's been poached, and there's despicable end users who want it for traditional medicine with no provenance, I might add, in China. It's probably worth $35,000. That's a lot. If that tigress, for example, let's call it a female, lives a full life, maybe has 4 litters, imagine the benefit to everybody involved with that tiger, all the ancillary benefits, even the guy who cuts hair for tourists in the local village, to the rangers, the guides, the park authorities, everything. That tiger could be worth as much as $80 million. Okay? It's very simple. They are worth so much more alive, but I'm afraid COVID, and particularly in India today, is I'm afraid leaving what I hope isn't an indelible imprint on it.
And that's a good point. What you talk about with COVID, and as you said, things are a lot more restricted now because of COVID, and there's not going to be as much, going to places, and well, just generally with the public population, a lot of us, at least in my understanding in America, a lot of us, even though the COVID vaccine is, being produced full front, a lot of us are still, scared to leave our homes, or scared to do common things that would be just commonplace, like a few years ago. And one of my questions was, what would you expect to see out of the U.S. population for issues like these, when once we finally get the vaccine distributed? Would you expect that things should resume just the way they were, or would you?
Well, I think unfortunately it's a very good question. Until people start realizing that a zero COVID policy and running away scared from it is utterly ludicrous. I'm seeing in Kenya, where my business is, it's being butchered because tourists aren't coming because they're told not to. Kenya's had 2,400 deaths from COVID. This year, it'll have 40,000 from malaria and TB, unfashionable diseases. We're not going to get rid of COVID. Let's be clear here. We've only ever eradicated one illness, and that's smallpox. And 20-year-old Americans, skinny Americans, are not falling over dead of COVID. Many other things they might be, but we have to have a much more adult philosophical approach to it. Yes, of course, the vaccine will make a big difference because it'll stop people dying from it. But it doesn't mean people won't catch it. We just have to learn to live with it. The sooner we learn to live with it, the sooner these countries and wildlife reserves and parks and conservancies can grapple back some of the huge losses. Because, of course, are they being policed properly now? Are people getting paid to police them? Of course they're not. All the money comes from tourists. So, this is almost a cordial embossed invitation to poachers. So it's a massive problem. And yeah, we got to stop running scared from COVID. Hey, I've had it. You know, I've had COVID. You know, you see, here I am living proof. I'm, you know, 2.5 times your age, and I've had it, and yeah, it wasn't great, but I'm not overweight, and I don't have type 2 diabetes. Sorry, that's the size of it, literally.
That's a really good point. And so we have a we're only going to be doing a 2-minute segment, so I'll ask one more final
No,
question.
no, you can cut and paste whatever you like.
And I'll just I'll get to one final question, then we can discuss whatever else you'd want to, or you could
Yeah, sure.
put up any social media you'd want people to go into, or ways they could donate to the
Yeah,
cause.
sure.
But this is in speaking of that, how would you, with these COVID restrictions and the way things are right now, what would you recommend for people like us to get involved right now if we were to do it?
Right. Well, first of all, you have to do a certain amount of research, and there has to be due diligence and provenance looked at, because there's an awful lot of people who raise money for animals, and I'm not saying a lot of them are charlatans, but it does concern me sometimes. Education is the most important thing. I'm quite sure there are species in America that are suffering right now. But education, people have to understand, and if they want to support financially, that they go about it in the right way. That's very important. You have to know that charities audit properly. I mean, I've been raising money for Bengal tigers for 20 years, and it has been immensely frustrating. But I do know where every dollar's been spent. And I may have done some foolish things in that suit, but at least I couldn't sleep at night if I thought, oh, well, the money's just gone to the park authorities and they've got their thieving hands on it. That's why we've done it privately with a proper charity. But yeah, research always is what's desperately important. And don't believe everything you read. When you see headlines, tiger numbers are going up. Let's be clear, there were hundreds of thousands of them now. There's probably 3,000 of them now. That's all. And there's 10,000 living in backwater Bible Belt apartments in your country. 10,000 tigers kept as pets, incarcerated. You've all seen the filthy series Tiger King, which was a disgrace. Not one of them came out well. Not one of them. And frankly, I stopped watching after about 3.5 episodes because I thought I was going to break my TV. It angered me so much. That's the very worst side of conservation. They're pretending to be conservationists. They're anything but.
Thank you for your comments. And so I think that's gonna rack up the questions I have. But is there anything you'd want to just put out there before we end? Anything that you'd want the viewers of my college specifically, and then people viewing from the Bay Area as well to know?
I think Finchley, with any endangered species, once you've done your research, once you've understood, save up, borrow, get money off your parents, do 2 jobs, do anything. Because however much you watch Attenborough, Animal Planet, Nat Geo, whatever, and I know I've worked with these cameramen, I've worked with these presenters, some of them are close friends, you will feel diametrically different than looking in a screen or a phone or whatever when you actually come face to face with one. It's a seminal moment. 23 years ago, I saw my first Bengal tiger, and I wasn't even expecting. I mean, I can still remember it now. It was an overnight train. I arrived wrung out and dry and bad-tempered, and they said, did I want to go to the little squat I was staying at, little lodge, to freshen up? I said, no, take me in the park. So, oh, it's a rubbish route, and we're not likely to see anything. And we saw a few peacocks, and we went round the corner. It was about 7 a.m. There's this 250-kilogram Bengal tiger asleep, lying in the road, just opened its eyes and looked at me. And now it had a phenomenal effect on me. I mean, really massive. This was a Damascene moment, a faunal epiphany. I didn't know it was going to affect me as it has done for 22 years. But I think it wasn't It was two things. Number one, the effect that animal had, as its implacable amber eyes gazed straight through me. But number two was knowing that 8 months later, the pelt of that animal was sat on the back of somebody in China. You can imagine how that made me feel, and it still makes me angry now. And if you don't wake up angry about things like that, you don't. I don't think you can call yourself a conservationist.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, and
Nothing, right?
thank you for agreeing to be on my my interview. And
No, eventually, it's a pleasure.
yeah,
It really is, and it's a good thing you're doing. It really is. It's step one, mate. But frankly, it doesn't surprise me with you. It really doesn't. So no, that's a good thing, Finchley. Well done.
cool. And thank you so much. And this is Finchley Hall for BECA 502. And thank you for tuning in. Let me just pause my recording.